We have a panel conversation. This is a really huge topic, so I don't want to take up too much time with an intro. We have Luke Hancock, the head of community for CFO Connect, a private network for finance executives. We have Lana Lee, the community manager and strategist at Zuora, and Sasmini Bandera, founder of Digital Nomad Life and CMX Connect chapter of our virtual Digital Nomad chapter. Today, they will be discussing the essentials of building a community from the ground up, the key components every thriving community needs, and strategies that align community goals with business value from the start, ensuring sustainable growth and meaningful impact for both your community and your organization. Please join me in welcoming Luke, Lana, and Sasmini.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today, and Lana Lee, and we are waiting for Luke as well. So I'm very excited to be here and to host Lana and Luke for this conversation. Very, very important topic about fundamentals of community. So as Beth has introduced us already a bit, I'm going to dive right into our conversation because there's a lot of things to unpack. And we are going to start from like the fundamentals, aligning business objectives and community goals. And one of the things that we really want to talk about is like connecting the business objectives with our community goals of our organizations. So before we move on to that topic, I would start talking about our leadership, like the role that leadership plays in terms of like building a, a I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I think I lost my all my topics and everything because Luke is supposed to get in first and answer the questions that I have. So let me just figure out the yes topic first. Okay, I am ready. Okay, so we were supposed to have an opening for this question for Lana. So I'm going to dive right into the question, Lana, about considering like what are the steps that we have to consider when building a community from scratch. So Lana, from your experience, what are the steps that we have to consider when building a community from scratch, and how do you prioritize them?
Sure. We'll answer the question when Luke comes on, but of course, you want to align with your business goals. That's a lot to unpack, but I'll let Luke do that. The second one is to identify the problems that your community will solve. That would be like interviewing internal and external stakeholders just to understand their pain points, like internals, if it's like meet with your CSM teams, those that are like connecting with your customers or members and things like that. And also for your customers or members, it's like, what are some things that they find challenging that you think the community will help solve? So that would be like one of the things. And then secondly, you want to identify your audience. Like, are you mostly focused on members or prospects or actually internals? So you just remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, because like you often don't fall into the comparisonitis, trap. Just focus on what you need to focus on, and just focus on one person at a time. And then lastly, have content to share, because a lot of people fall into the trap of, hey Luke, fall into the trap of, you know, build it and they will come. So just like if you just launch your community, people just naturally start talking and things like that. It doesn't happen that way. So make sure you have some content and some tidbits, some carrots to dangle in front of them so that you get the conversation started.
Thanks, Lana. And everyone, I have my thoughts collected right now since Luke is in the room. So we can start from like connecting all the community goals into the objectives as well. Yes, thank you so much for those insights, Lana, about like how do we prioritize from the beginning and how do we start off. Before we start off, like before we make that decision that to initiate a community, to launch a community, our community goals and business objectives have to be aligned. So this is where Luke comes in, and to answer the question about like how do we connect the goals of a community to business objectives. Luke, over to you.
Yeah, first of all, sorry for tuning in late. Was having a few technical issues. Happy to jump in. So in terms of connecting company objectives to the community, I think first and foremost, what's important, even before going down that rabbit hole, is thinking about why behind building the community. Like, what are you trying to achieve from a community standpoint? What is your North Star? And also, what is one particular goal on the business side you're trying to influence with the community? Secondly, I would really recommend, even before launching it, is championing the concept of community internally to key stakeholders, especially C-level, because what I've seen in the past happen is that C-level or management will see community as a vehicle to quickly influence objectives across the org. But the fact is that community is a long game, and it takes time and efforts and consistency. So just trying to plug in an objective to the community and then throwing it out there, I think, is really the wrong approach. What I would say is pinpoint exactly what you think your community can help to influence or to optimize. Think of the spaces model, where community is a center of excellence, right? It's at the heart of the org, and it can influence something very broad. So it can help with peer-to-peer support. It can help with sales. It can help with content creation. So I would say pick one of those broader topics. Don't have any necessarily, I would say, specific metrics yet, because it's still too early to focus on that. And really, yeah, think of it as a more long-term play. And so when you're first launching your community, what I would recommend is don't track metrics. Really just go off of the vibe. I know that it's hard to actually know what I mean by that, but community building at its core, especially in the beginning, it's all about creating relationships, building trust, and you don't want to erode that for the sake of hitting your metrics.
Amazing. I think if we have learned anything from the previous conversation that Danny also brought in about like how different departments work together, like for product activation, for marketing, socials, and everything. So figuring out what the objectives are, like what your community stand for, or like where you add value to, is like very, very important. And like as Luke correctly pointed out as well. So yeah, so since we have like sort of like have a bit of conversation about business objectives, community goals, as well as like what are the first steps when we start from scratch, I would like to move on to like the growth part. So my next question is actually for both Lana and Luke. In your experience, what are the non-negotiables that every thriving community must have?
I can start. The first one is, of course, always have a community manager, because a lot of organizations, they think, oh, community is just this fluffy thing. We can have someone from this team or that team work on it part-time. They just need to like answer questions and things like that. But they don't realize that community management is a lot of like Luke said, a lot of relationship building, and also across the organization. So you have to think of it like, I just like to think of it like Survivor. Like when people get on the island, they make alliances at first. You want to have those teams that are going to be your champions and your evangelists and things like that. So I think that's one of the important non-negotiables that a lot of organizations, they just try to save money. It's like, we don't need a community manager to take care of this. So that would be me.
Yeah, a few non-negotiables from my end, especially going from 0 to 1. I would say try to niche down as much as you can, especially in the early phases, because the more common traits your members have, the more they will feel that sense of connectedness. For example, we're hosting a finance community where right now in my current role, and the way we seeded it was actually creating the community in Paris for finance leaders who are in a startup environment and trying to solve a specific problem. And so when you have all these shared traits, it really helps to create that initial spark that you're looking to in order to create that the connectedness. Another, I think, important part is what I say a lot is go slow to go fast, right? It's okay not to scale your community 100x the first 6 months. What's more important is identifying your core ambassadors, your army of people who will then help you to scale it later on, right? But I think what's more important is being super attentive and nourishing those initial relationships. So it could be even 5 to 10 people, for example. Another one I really believe in is meet your members where they are. So it's really important to understand the psychology of your members, understand what is their lifestyle, what are the things that they're consuming, like what radio stations, what social media networks, so that you can make sure you're meeting them where they are in a very organic way. And lastly, and I think this is like something that makes a community thrive is having more of an altruistic approach. So it's giving without expecting anything in return, because I think that again is at the core of community. It's serving others, and in turn, if you serve others and celebrate their victories, you also will have success. So those are, I think, 4 of my core tenets in building a community from zero.
Thank you, Luke and Lana, for sharing those non-negotiables for yourselves as well in terms of building community. And I also wholeheartedly agree. Finding those collaborations and co-creation and like how you handle relationships very, very important at the beginning of your community journey, especially when you're building a community from scratch for an organization, and sort of like how building up those relationships as well. So I wholeheartedly agree on those. And just as important as figuring out your non-negotiables, it is also important to figure out like how to talk to your leadership, how to secure the buy-in from your leadership when you're growing a successful community. So this question is to Lana. It is about the role the leadership plays in establishing and growing a successful community. What are your thoughts on that, Lana?
Yeah, for me, leadership is everything because they're the ones that write the checks. So, and they're also the ones that will help you develop internal stakeholder buy-in. So if you convince the leadership that the community is valuable, it'll trickle down. Like they'll sort of, I hate to use this word, but they'll sort of volunteer their team to work with you. And one way to do that is just to for their first year, take the opportunity to go on a roadshow. Like get in front of every team, even if they don't have time, just say, I'd love to talk to your team on your weekly meeting if you have 5 minutes. And that's the other thing, is just always have a presentation ready to go, because there have been times where I showed up to work and they said, oh, someone didn't show up, isn't able to speak at our team meeting. Can you talk in about like 15 minutes? So then I have a presentation ready to go, just something short, talk about the value of the community, some current like stories and metrics, basic metrics that appeal to specifically that team, because every team has a different metric song that they like, whether it's stories or feelings or anything like that. And also end with, how can you leverage the community? Let's work together. Let's make your team shine, because you want to be the color to their black and white, be the icing. Like they're the cake, they're the ones that are actually doing the business objectives, but you're actually adding the frosting and doing the cherry on top to actually elevate them. So in a way, like community is a supportive role. So you want to help them be superstars. I often tell internal folks, what can I do to help you get your next raise and things like that. So I just like having the Robin approach to Batman. So let them be Batman and you can be Robin. So.
I love that approach. That's a really good thing to keep in mind when you're talking to your leadership as well. Yes, and it is also important to see that there is a lot of leadership that is very, very supportive of community approaches that you go into. So when you have that support and way to collaborate and talk to them, it's also really a great place to be when you are starting your community from scratch. Thank you, Lana, for that sharing. And then the next topic that we want to quickly explore is like measurements, like measuring, like how do you measure success for an early stage community. So this question goes to Luke. So the question is, how do you measure the success of a community in its early stages, and what metrics should be prioritized?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, right? It's first of all mapping out what is your North Star, or what is your mission statement as a community. And so I would say early on it's more tracking towards that. So obviously you can tie some like vanity metrics which helps to give you a sense of like growth, engagement. But what's more important, I would say, is the qualitative feedback that you're getting and seeing in the community. So when you're first launching the community, I kind of liken the launching a community kind of like launching a product. So instead of product market fit, it's community market fit, in a sense, to where, you know, like, are you seeing that they're starting to have like people come back to discussions on whatever platform you're hosting? Do you see there are these aha moments where people are feeling a sense of connection around the topic or around your product or whatever your community revolves around? And I like to think of this framework called the TRIBE framework, which I recently learned about. So it stands for togetherness, rituals, member identity, belonging, and engagement. And so I think this is a really nice bucket of ideas and concepts that you should actually be tracking as an initial sense of, is the community working or not? Like, are you seeing rituals forming? Are you seeing a sense of togetherness? Are you seeing one core identity that your community? And so I think all those ingredients really exist and show that there's a real sense of community, and that you are seeing success and you're seeing traction. Again, vanity metrics are good because they add a more concrete flavor to the community, and those are easier to report into internally. As Lana was saying, right, you want to try to get people on board internally, and you want to speak their language. So I think there it could be a lot more impactful if you're sharing those numbers. But when it's at its core, you really want to be measuring more qualitative metrics, as I mentioned.
Thank you, Luke. Lana, would you like to weigh in here as well?
I forgot I was muted. But I would say, like Luke was saying, just download the CSVs for your metrics. Just make a simple dashboard so you can pop it out. So when you do go to those meetings, you can send them the link to your report, and then just say, here are the numbers, because really they only like glance at it and just to see if the number's going up. Then you could spend the valuable time that they did give to you to talk about what you need to talk about, you know. And so, because right now, for the first year, it's like you got to make those relationships. You got to get internal stakeholder buy-in and things like that. And another way to do that is also create an internal newsletter and just blast it out to your internal channels. And just be like, this is what the community's doing today, or things like, you can make it fun, make it like, you know, short and sweet and snazzy, so that at least like you're planting seeds. You don't want to grow a crop. You don't need to grow all the corn today. You just need to plant some seeds today and just keep watering it little at a time.
Thank you. So that was actually like a very quick overview of like how do you connect your business goals and community goals, and then sort of go into like the first steps of like in building a community from scratch, and what role does the leadership play, and then like measuring the success, and sort of like now we have like spoken about like where to start and growth. And we would like to wrap up the conversation in a bit. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A tab. Until everyone else sends in the questions, I have just one final question for both Lana and Luke, and that is, what advice do you have for any community managers here, or like business owners here who are starting their community from scratch?
Sure, I can start. I would say start small because there's so many community things out there, and just like you're going to feel overwhelmed that you want to do all the things, and you're like, I can't. So I would just say, just start small. Three is a magic number. Just choose three goals, choose three teams, and even if you don't have three, just choose one and make it awesome, make it spectacular. And don't feel bad. Don't fall, like I said, don't fall into the comparisonitis trap and things like that. Just do what you do best because there's only one you. And so that's the important thing. And the second thing is also to have interviews. Just ask internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. So at least you have a pulse of what the community is like, internal and external, so that you can keep your ear to the ground and be like one step ahead of everybody else. Because then that'll make you sort of look like a fortune teller and give you some sort of like magic, quality to you. And everyone will want to work with you.
Thank you, Lana. Luke?
I really love what Lana said, especially the first point. I think you have to be very patient and compassionate with yourself because community building is a long game. It's not something that's going to flourish overnight. And so it ties in nicely with one of my points, which is just being consistent. Like show up day in, day out, regardless of what's happening. So for example, if you're hosting your community on a Slack or a Discord or a forum, showing up, being present on a regular basis, not even having to contribute to the conversation, but just being around, I think really helps to create a sense of community. I think one thing that we obviously hear a lot is do things that don't scale. So although it might not be the most efficient process, for example, to do one thing, if you can go out, reach out to one person, have an hour interview with them, like those are the things that really lay the foundation as a springboard for the community in the long run, right? So even to this day, right, we've been running the community that I'm hosting and running for over 6 years now. I really try to, in my schedule, reach out to people on a personal basis, have interviews with them, help them out, connect them with others, because I think that's what's the most important thing in terms of running a community. And then lastly, I think in terms of actually like going from 0 to 1 and building a community, what I've seen is that there's a cold start problem, right? Like I think the idea, like it's hard to actually source members, right? When you're first starting, you don't know where to start. So what I would recommend, especially if you're a company, is first building an audience, right? Build an audience of, let's say, 10,000 followers, and then you'll have an audience who then you could reach out to and start to pick out who maybe are the people in there who have the most passion and who are your brand ambassadors. And then you can take those people and start to create the sense of another community. So I would say avoid the cold start problem, build an audience first, and then pick and choose ambassadors from that group.
Thank you. I thank you, Luke, as well. I totally resonate with both of you guys, and I think it's really valuable advice for me as well as a community, especially like a community director for the CMX chapter. Like when we started, it's been like 2 years for my digital nomad CMX community, and we are still like figuring it out. And we just onboarded like a co-director as well. So and like sort of like trying to figure out like what our niche, what are the events that we are going to focus on. Like right now we are like working on like operations manual for all the small things that we are doing. So it's super important, I think, like to figure out like to like accept and acknowledge that community work is going to take a long time. And if it is to like even give examples, like I have seen like how Notion communities evolve, how like there's another community that like even CMX, how it has evolved so far, right? So it's been like a lot of years of work, which I feel like when we are as community managers and we go into the work, we have to acknowledge and accept first. Thank you so much, Lana and Luke, for that wonderful answers and sharing your experience around like how to start off. And we have a couple of Q&As. I'm gonna just pick like one of the questions that has most votes. So the question is from Beth. So the question is actually, do either of you have any advice for community managers who are interviewing for a role that entails launching a community? So what should someone ensure to include in their interview answers and or cover letter? Lana, would you like to take this on?
Yeah, I wrote the response. I said, I suggest including project management skills or organization skills because you're going to be dealing with basically, like Luke said, treat it as a product launch. And also give examples where you grew a community. People always remember the stories. Even if you don't have like actual practical community experience, we all live in a community in some way or another. And we've all grown, communities. And so I would just tell that story and just sort of explain that way, because I think people will remember that.
Luke, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I think what's important in an interview context is also being able to show your understanding of community in the business context and how actually it'll be of value, right? We're not here for fun. We're here to also drive impact across the org. And so I think what I've seen in the past with interviews is that, you really want to see an understanding of how someone can manipulate a community in order to help drive business objectives. So I think it's really important to have that connection, because if not, I think the community can then kind of be led astray.
Okay, I think we have run out of time for the Q&A as well. Beth, I just want to check with you before we wrap up. Okay, I think, so we have one more question, so I'm just going to take it like super fast. And Lana already has answered that, in the chat. So the question is, are there any specific quantitative metrics we should track in early stages? Luke, would you like to take that first?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I've been trying to pass through my other messages, is that yes, there are. So the question was what exactly? It was
specific quantitative metrics.
Quantitative.
Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of quantitative metrics, what I would be looking at is something like retention rate. So how often is somebody coming back to the community? Like what's the stickiness? Because I think that's a very strong signal that the person sees value in it and that they're actually getting something out of it. I would say stray away from engagement, because the way I see engagement is the means to something. So not all engagement is healthy engagement. So I think you should be tracking more, is the engagement helping to accomplish whatever mission you've set as a community? So I think there's more of a qualitative twist to it, but those are a few quantitative ways I would look at the metrics.
Yes, thanks, Luke. I think, Lana, would you like to repeat your answer as well? Because I can't find it on the Q&A tab.
Oh, sure. Let me find it. What disappeared? I would check, like similar to what Luke said, is just like check discussions, like replies and things like that. Shows things that show interactivity, to show that there is like discussion happening, and things like connections and relationships that are growing.
Yes, I think like engagement, in different formats, like if you have like a Slack platform, like how many messages were sent on early stage, you sort of like can figure out like whether your value proposition works and like whether your niche works and like the messages that you are sending on early stage works, like through those responses and everything, right? Yeah, I agree as well. Yeah, so that is pretty much it for like the fundamentals of community and like what we have in store for you in terms of like where to start a community from scratch. And hope this was an interesting conversation, and as much as it was for us. So if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Lana or Luke, or even me. I can also like direct the questions to them, and connect with us and talk to us if you have any questions about like around this topic as well. Beth, okay, you're here. So yeah, over to you. Thank you.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Lana. Thank you, Luke. And thank you, Sazmini, for having such a fantastic conversation in front of all of us.